So here's just a short message before we begin today's episode. If you enjoy this podcast, it's now possible to support it through Patreon. And some people have asked me about the practicalities of this. So what you do is you go to patreon.com/forestofthought, and there you can register either with a credit card or PayPal and some other options, I think. And you register to give a donation every time we post an episode, which is usually once every 3 weeks. And we've created or made 3 suggested tiers for donations, like 3 possible sums, but you can actually choose exactly which sum you like. And any sum, big or small, is deeply appreciated. And as a Patreon supporter, you get access to bonus material like extended episodes. And you also have our heartfelt gratitude and the knowledge that you're contributing to making this podcast possible. And if you are short on the cash, which so many of us are these days, just sharing the episode with your friends or giving it a few stars or a review on your favorite podcast app is just as valuable. You can read more about this on our website, forestofthought.com, under the tab Support Us. Thank you all again, and let's jump into today's episode. Welcome to the Forest of Thought with me, Ingrid Rieser. We can spend a lot of our day talking, but how often do we take part in real conversations? And how often are we attentive to the dialogues happening beyond words? We've all experienced frustrating or draining or exhilarating or expansive or maybe even life-changing conversations. But what is it that makes certain conversations so special and transformative? And could we be having more of those kinds of exchanges? Our guest for today is facilitator, writer, and theater director, Pernilla Glaser.
I have been asking a lot of people what a good conversation is. Some things are always the same, and the things that are the same are that there is an element of risk when you go in. And there's also a sense of disappearing time. So we lose sense of time. We're just talking, and then oops, oh my God, I gotta go to work. And they always say that we come out with something that not one of us have ownership over. And it's surprising to both of us. And I think that these qualities are really interesting because you could use the exact same qualities to describe an artistic process, a creativity.
Pernilla Glaser runs the company Boiler and works at RISE, Research Institute of Sweden, with developing methods and leading processes within the areas of art, learning, and complexity. She's also a writer and began her career as an award-winning theater director. Now she brings the creativity and playfulness of artistic practice into all kinds of learning processes. That can mean facilitating workshops that help people collaborate across disciplines, or coaching change processes within organizations, or working with other facilitators on how to develop their skills. Central to all her work is how we can have transformative conversations with and without words. We met at Pernilla's home in Stockholm in a warmly lit kitchen that kept the dreariness of the October sky at bay. We sat around her kitchen table next to a bubbling aquarium, while the voices of her kids could be faintly heard from the next room. There's always a lot of places to start a conversation. But when I was preparing for this, I was reading up on you, and you write somewhere you wrote that you are obsessed with conversations. And just reading that made me realize that I'm also obsessed with conversations.
Yep. Once you pop, you can't stop.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess that's why I have a conversation podcast as well. So maybe we could just start there a little bit, since that was what really pulled me in and made me contact you for this conversation. What do you mean when you say that you're obsessed with conversations, and how did you get to that point?
Well, I think that, like with almost anything, there's a long answer and a short answer to that question.
We should do the long answer.
Yeah. I'll try to do at least a part of the long answer.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think that there are different ways, of course, to look at what a conversation is and can be, and how it can be defined. But I think that what I mean when I say that is that I am endlessly interested in the transformative exchange between two or more parties. So to see conversation as not something where I sort of put my ideas up on a shelf for you to see, and then you put your ideas up on a shelf for me to see, and then we go home, which is something that we also do in our culture, and we have debates where that is what's taking place. And I think that there is a space for that. I don't think that has no value. I think that it can be extremely valuable if you are unsure of how to vote, to see that, so those are actually your ideas on that shelf. Yeah. Good, now I know. But I'm more into the business myself of what kind of conversations have a transformative effect. Yeah. And I think it was Jung who said that conversations are like chemistry, that you bring these two different things together, and if there is a meeting, a transformation happens. So you come out with something that wasn't there before. And I am an artist from the start. So I started out as a theater director and as a writer. And I think that art is very much dealing with this, the transformative conversation. And I mean, my story is basically to strip away a lot of the context of art, but keeping the practice. So we're not in a theater anymore, and it's not about actor and audience, but we're still in a mutual exploration or a storytelling or an embodied practice or something that could potentially be caught in an artistic practice. But how would that work around a kitchen table or in the town square or so on and so forth? So I have sort of taken the conversation out of the artistic practice, if you will, and kept on exploring in a multitude of ways how this exchange of ideas can be transformative. And it's actually interesting because I have been asking a lot of people what a good conversation is in their experience. Yeah. So that has been something that I've been doing in many workshops the last years, because I mean, out of my own curiosity, but also because I've been teaching a lot in facilitation and so on, and then you have to talk about this. So and now I can see that there are things that people answer that are the same, regardless of age, culture, socioeconomical background. It doesn't matter where I am. Some things are always the same. And the things that are the same are that there is an element of risk when you go in. So it can be a small element of risk, like for us, we've never met before.
Right.
So but it's still like, ooh, how is this going to be? Or it's a bigger element, like I put away talking about this for a long time, and now I'm going to address it, or something like that. And there's also a sense of disappearing time. So we lose sense of time. We're just talking, and then oops, oh my God, I gotta go to work. And so that's a quality that they always mention. And they always say that we come out with something that not one of us have ownership over.
Right.
We come out with something that we have mutual ownership over, or no one has. It's something in its own. And it's surprising to both of us, or all of us. And I think that these qualities are really interesting, that they are always brought up, they're always pointed towards, because you could use the exact same qualities to describe an artistic process, a creativity.
Interesting.
It's an element of risk. It's getting lost in time, and you come out with something that is surprising.
Yeah. So really good conversations are like works of art.
Yes,
or like the
and I
artistic
actually
process.
had that comment from I did a lecture when I spoke about this, and then I had a comment from one listener who wrote that, because I was invited to talk about creativity, so I talked about that in different ways, but I also talked about it in this way. And then she wrote, I'm one of those who always got all sweaty all over the body when you're supposed, on Friday we're going to do this creative thing at work. And you just feel like, oh God, no. And then she wrote, but now I'm never going to be afraid anymore, because now I know it's a conversation.
Right.
So, and that was slightly heartwarming to hear that. It made me really happy that yes, I mean, it is.
So, but that's super interesting. Could you say something a little bit about how how this then applies to the work that you're doing now within facilitation? Like, could you give us some examples of the kind of work you're doing and how these topics come into that?
Yes, I just need to choose where to start. I can give you some different examples, but I think that we need tools that can harbor great complexity. And I think that we have spent a lot of time in our organizations and in our ideas of what development and change and transformation can be, making tools that can break things down into clear entities. And I think that there is also a lot of innovation processes that deals with that. And a problem-solving mindset, if you will. And I'm not at all against solving problems. And this might sound like a detour, but I haven't forgotten your question.
I'm with you.
I do think that both our learning institutions, all of them, and also sort of the whole industry, be it academic or private or whatever, around change, that I myself are part of, have gotten so involved in problem solving. So we make problems so that we can get the thrill of solving them.
Interesting.
And this is something that when I'm teaching, especially when I'm teaching designers and architects, which I've done a lot, I always say that this is my main task with them, is to make them to stop solving problems.
Right.
Because it blocks out the ability to navigate complexity. And the only thing that can navigate complexity, to my knowledge, are conversations and artistic practices, storytelling and art, and mutual exchange that is not following a strict order or script like you and I are having now. This can harbor complexity, but I won't be rewarded for having solved a problem in the conversation with you. I won't get that reward. I won't get that golden coin that, yeah, we did it. And I think that is sort of how I curate my projects. So at the moment, I'm building a research laboratory within RISE, which is Research Institutes of Sweden, where I have a position. And together with Sweco Societies and a small company called Dialogues, who work a lot with citizen dialogues and conflict dialogues. It's a research platform called Laboratory of Disorder to bring together research on complexity, conflict, and resistance, and to work with artistic practices with the involved organizations who come to this laboratory to work on their very real life issues and be part of this research. So there are authorities and municipalities and NGOs and all kinds of civil organizations and artistic organizations that come together in this laboratory to both benefit from research on this, but also to produce research together with real problems. Like, we are trying to have dialogue with this group and it's not possible. Or we have encountered this kind of resistance, or this kind of conflict happened when we try to shut down that or create that. How do we navigate this? So Laboratory of Disorder is sort of a kind of hybrid research platform that is now taking its shape, and we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we do know that it will work with artistic practice in the sense that using different languages for how we discuss things. So that can mean that I want you to share your painful experience in 3 different ways. Okay. I want you to share it visually, I want you to share it physically, and I want to share it with words. So we're not having a hierarchy where everything is words. Right. Like we normally do. We
usually think of conversations as being words too.
Exactly. And we also think that when you say it, it's true. If you show a picture, it can be ambiguous. So there is a hierarchy between how much gravity we sort of put to this.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Could you, and just to go a bit deeper into that, could you maybe give an example or tell a story of this, what this problem-solving framework or problem-solving framing sounds like or looks like, just so that we can recognize that and then maybe contrast that a bit with...
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the ways it can look like, and one of the ways that I think is very common right now, is... I think that not so long ago, I think it was connected to innovation. So then I think it was very much about how do we make an improvement? So, okay, we need people to come together in this space. It's a problem that they don't find this particular space. Why don't the students use this cool space over here and do cool things? Let's do a design sprint and find 10 different ways of using this space. So we have a problem, and then we sprint ideas. Then I think it was very much about this. Now, I think it's much more about taking a huge complex issue, like sustainability, and then very quickly go, okay, so how do we solve the problem with climate change? And I think that is, you take something that is huge and complex, and you almost have a sort of pretend situation that it is something that you can place up here on the table as a small accessible unit. And just the sort of wording that, how do we solve the problem with inequality, or how do we solve the problem with democracy, it cripples the discussion, because everybody will have 2 thoughts at the same time around the table. They will think, yes, it's really urgent. and shit, I have no fucking idea at the same time. And then nothing can really come out of that except quotes from earlier conversations, which is super common in these seminars, that you just go, yeah, we need to kind of meet more across borders. Yeah, you're right. And it's like, we kind of knew that.
Yeah.
And you sort of grasp for these things that we already said or we already read, because we can't access our creativity when this big complex issue are supposed to be eaten like a singular problem. And we can even go as far as producing these great pin-up pictures where we have produced ideas on how to solve the climate crisis. And we go around and go like, that's really interesting. And solar panels, and act as if this is new and unique, and give each other these golden coins for, great, you came up with something.
Yeah.
Good. Instead of saying, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should just sit in the mess.
So what does that? How do you bring people
Sorry.
into that? No. I think it's because I have been at so many workshops like what you just described.
Yeah.
So it's very.
You recognize the pain.
I recognize the pain very much, and I always get really. I think I said this before on the episode with Carrie Facer, actually, who that I sort of always get really depressed from these like envisioning exercises where you're supposed to like see this amazing future or whatever. I don't know. It's sort of, for some reason, that it really doesn't work for me. But but so yeah, please. So what do you do when you bring people into then the sitting in the mess? What does that look like?
I mean, sitting.
For example.
Yeah. For example, I think it can be. I really like to practice. If I take an example with students, because it's in a sense it's often in these learning situations that we do these horror workshops that you went to, right? Yeah. So I really like to practice with students. There are several things, but one thing is to hang out with things that you don't understand in an enthusiastic way.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it. Hanging out with things you don't understand in an enthusiastic way.
Yes. So, because we also feel stupid when we don't understand something.
Right.
But that's something that we have learned to feel. That someone has told us that, you didn't have the right answer, you didn't get it, and made us feel small. In the face of that. But we can reprogram ourselves into thinking, this text is really, it's completely overwhelmingly impossible. My God, that's so interesting. How can something be so inaccessible? And then you can do things with it. So you can be, I've done lists where I have students sing impossible Karen Barad episodes to each other, play it out like a scene, make a movie that explores one sentence that you understand in the full mist of the impossible text. This sentence made sense to me. Or this sentence talked to me, but I don't know why. But it said something, and I'm going to make a short movie with my cell phone about this sentence. So sort of have this relationship. Take the text to dance, or the problem to dance, or the whatever it is, phenomena to dance, whatever it is that feels overwhelmingly messy and impossible. Take it up to and dance with it. Right. Do other things with it, and then. It might not, in the end, you might not get the text, but you get other things.
Right.
You access learning, and that's the point. It doesn't matter if we solve the problem or not, as long as we get in touch with important things, right? So relationship happens. You suddenly see something, relationship building. So I think that is something that you can really practice.
Yeah.
And then you have to be this sort of figure where you are sort of trickster figure, that you can sort of go and holler an academic text in the park and be like, I don't get it, but I'm gonna scream it. Or I mean, you have to really sort of grab it by the balls a little bit and be bold with the things you don't understand. And I think that is very much the opposite to what we are taught. We are taught to sort of slowly decipher it one piece at a time. But we can't slowly decipher migration. And we can't slowly decipher the complexity of the democracy and the threat to democracy. It doesn't matter how much we try or how good we are at it. So I think then we need to be these trickster figures and just go full up against different parts of this complexity. So I think that is really important. And I also think it is important to move between expressions.
Right.
So that if we feel that, oh, this conversation, this process or this conversation has been, we've tried language now for a while. We've been talking. Let's do something else, and then let's do something else, and then let's do something else. So, and I think that is something that is totally underexploited. I mean, we have completely separate rooms for dancing and talking.
Yes.
Or every time. All the time, and I think that is a problem, huge problem, because your brain works differently in these different kinds of conversations. So if you take on the climate crisis with a tango, something else will happen.
Yeah.
And I think that, but it is again, and I think that to translate between these expressions is really important. And as you know, I'm also obsessed with translating between different expressions and different experiences. I think that is a quality that we need, and a competence that we need to develop. And we also need this trickster to give ourselves permission, because we will initially feel like idiots when we do this tango thing.
Well, I've actually done the tango thing. That's interesting. I took many years ago a leadership course in complexity, and then dancing tango was part of it. Actually,
fantastic. How did it feel?
Oh, it was great. I really liked it, but I like dancing, so it worked well for me. I don't know how other people felt, although it was not. I think it was more like in the evening, and I think it was a little optional, so it wasn't maybe as integrated. But I think you would have. I think you would have liked this course actually, based on what you're saying.
Fantastic. And it's interesting that you say this, because I think that this kind of work that we're talking about now, I think that I had this discussion not so long ago with a colleague and friend who has worked a lot with the norm critical work in Sweden, and we talked about how working with complexity and working with norm critical questions or issues are very, very similar, and they also provoke the same reactions, because when you go in and you do a norm activistic or a norm creative or whatever you call it workshop, there are always people who feel like, oh, finally. I'm so relieved.
Right.
My narrative comes out. I can be myself for the first time. And then you have another group of people who feel like, can we please go back to the real work? Because this is just nonsense and stupid and just takes up our time. And it's usually the ones with the greater privilege who feel uncomfortable. But it can be just, it's not always that, but it's usually that. And it's exactly the same when you work with complexity and these kind of translational movements, that there are people who go like, woohoo, yes, I'm going to holler this impossible text. And then there are others who go like, what do I learn from this? And what is this is just super uncomfortable. So it's a little bit like oil and water, and you need to sort of take care of that as a facilitator, because there's not a correct reaction to this. It's just reactions.
Yeah, because I think that just your description there also made me think about how I guess that a knee-jerk response to that is often this, well, what's the point of this? Or where is this going to take me, and what is going to be the results? Because like you said, we're very used to thinking about deciphering or picking apart a problem, and then the result will be that we have deciphered and picked it apart. And if it's not if we don't know what it is that we will learn or what it is that we will understand, then it feels risky, and it feels like, well, we don't know what we're getting back. Maybe it will be nothing, and then we end up missing out on the most important thing. Which I guess is kind of symptomatic of just a lot of what we have issues with in the way we do things today. But then, like you said at the beginning, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be, that it's not very useful to pick things apart or anything like that. It's just that we're applying that way of thinking to problems that are not actually problems, but rather just, messy situations that we need to sort of feel into or work into.
But I think that there is also, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's exactly that. And I think that it is also, I mean, where will this take me, or where will this lead, is also, it is a relevant question. And it's a question that often can be answered. And I think it should also be answered, because I think it's a little bit cheating if you're a facilitator and you do the hollering or the tango exercise, and then you're like, well, it will just be like teaching you how to hang out with complexity. And you're like, okay, that don't really mean anything to me. So it's also, you also need to sort of take this down into, okay, but what is hanging out with complexity, and why is it? Okay, so maybe, it teaches me how to see things from different perspectives. It teaches me how to live myself into things and think myself into things. And it can teach me how to create relationships between theory and practice, and different kinds of theories, and the embodied and the taught, and so on and so forth. So there are all these boxes to unpack together, which are learning outcomes of this. So I think that we need to do that unpacking together to sort of create the safety, because this is real things. So not to just sort of leave people alone with that. So I think that is super important. And I also think that we need to recognize that the fear of this is also because people know what kind of systems they are inside of. So if you know that my professor will ask for this pin-up exhibition, and he will ask for these results, and I will be criticized, and I won't be able to do a tango performance as a reply to that, then you have to sort of take care of that as well. That it doesn't matter always what I want or what I feel, because I might be in a system that punish me for doing this kind of explorative work. And then I need to find pockets of action in different ways, and I need to find the other kinds of ambassadors, but I also need to take care and be gentle with that situation, and sort of respect and honor that this is where I'm right now. And then I gotta speak where it's possible and move where it's possible. So I think that is also a fact.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think that maybe also, I think that that's what can bother a lot of people, anybody who's been to this, to a kind of workshop where you're supposed to be super creative, or you're supposed to do something silly, and then it's just highly uncomfortable and humiliating, and you didn't get anything out of it. I mean, I've been to those workshops as well. And
yes, we all have those scars.
Yeah, so it's also kind of a question of, when it is possible to have learning processes that are approaching this in a different way, as you're trying to do, but that are also rigorous, and that it's not just random, it's built through experience and so on. And so I think that, like you said, when you do that unpacking and can be a bit clearer about, well, what is this about, and what were we gaining from this, then I guess that also builds trust to allow people to come into that, because it is also, it can quickly become anything goes if we're trying to do something differently, and that's actually not useful either.
Absolutely not useful. and also sort of decreasing the value of creative processes and creative professions and so on. So so I think that we really need to be specific and put language onto what it is that we do and what it is that we aim for. But it's also interesting that, I mean, for example, I've been teaching all kinds of students, and some of the students who have been most enthusiastic about workshops where I've asked students to create, for example, games and play and things like that, have been business students. And I think that is telling, because they also don't necessarily have an idea of what creativity should look like.
Interesting.
So for them, it's been like, yes, we see the value. Yes, it's great. Yeah, bring it on. And so I think that, and this is also what I mean with that, there is a sort of a business of creativity and change, and that we also have to look critically at. Yeah. What is a good design process, and what is just another horrifying post-it exercise that we don't want to go through. And to be able to see that difference. I think a lot of people have post-it fatigue. Yes. Because they've done this. And it's time to level up.
Right. Do you want to say something about what you think leveling up means?
No, I think leveling up means that we need to see complexity or transformative competencies, developing transformative competencies as a field that is interdisciplinary and that draws from many different theoretical fields, and that is emerging now, and that is something that we have to use when confronting the big societal issues that we're dealing with, challenges that we deal with today. And because it is emerging, we need to take care and ask questions about what kind of transformative competences are we practicing now? How are we working with this? Is this the hollering in the park part, or is this something else? What is it that I'm exercising now, and what does this draw from? Because we have research on creativity, and we have research on post-colonialism, and they are both relevant for this field. And if we want to work in this field, we need to show that questions about representation and the research on flow belong in the same field. And they have to do with each other, and we have to show how. So I think that that's the leveling up, that this is not about getting to know each other exercises. It's not about ideation. It's not about problem solving. It is about transformation from between systems and from one system to another. And that's a field in its own right. And it is really contains practice and theory and knowledge from both those sectors.
Super interesting. Could you say something about what you feel now? I mean, I guess you're always journeying and developing as a facilitator yourself, but what do you feel is what is that you're really working on now that you find challenging and interesting to be developing for yourself?
I mean, I think a lot about rest at the moment, and it is sort of both as a facilitator, and I mean it is. I think that, and it's also a societal observation that I think there is a lot of fatigue in all our systems, and I notice that I speak about it in every workshop. I address it all the time, and I have included it a lot as a facilitator. So I, for example, ask people to think about what it is that makes them exhausted, and how that might point them towards qualities, or what has that shown. Not to say that it has necessarily been a great experience, but has it connected you to something of value, or has it shown you something of value? what is that? Because I think that so that's kind of what I'm occupied with as a facilitator. If I take what I seem to be sort of one of the things that I seem to be gravitating a lot towards right now, it's this fatigue that I see, and that people are overwhelmed by COVID and work and stuff and life and politics and the whole shebang. And then how can we do anything? How can we work? How can we produce, discuss, read, exchange ideas if we don't take this into account? If we don't make this exchange also a space for rest, slowness, tears, ambivalence, being unsure. So I think I'm really interested in this sort of blurry, vague territory of I don't know, but I'm blah. And how can we sort of nurture ourselves?
Be in that space.
And how can we make these spaces for transformation, spaces where we can rehabilitate and rest, and not just because navigating complexity, even if we stay out of problem solving, it can still be super exhausting, and we can still have a lot of ideas on I succeed. I was the top student in staying out of the problem solving zone, and then we're like, okay, but then that's a problem. so we tend to
slip back into our
we slip back into these hierarchies and sort of how to perform. Now I perform the unperformative the best. I was the best unperforming, and you're like, so and that's like so easy. I was spontaneous. I was the most spontaneous. I was the most creative, or I was really bad at being spontaneous. God, I'm bad. I don't have any imagination. I'm so bad, and we do this all the time. So how can we equip these spaces where we do want to work on transformation with other qualities and with assisting ourselves to stay out of that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because speaking of this, that it seems that people are, exhausted and confused. And I was thinking a little bit about this in terms of the public discussion and the public discourse and the public conversation. I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that as well, because it feels, my mom's side of the family is from the States, and so I obviously have a lot of family and friends there, and also just the situation as it is there right now. My heart really goes out to everybody who's there now, because it feels like whoever you are, it's sort of a very exhausting situation, or it's exhausting to live through political and social turmoil in that way, and so I was thinking about how a lot of the time we're also on this, or a lot of people are on this 24-hour news cycle as well, where there's this other energy, which is this debate energy maybe. And where every time we check our phones, it's this, you feel, angry or outrage or anxiety or sadness. And I guess this is also, I think this is different than, just radio and TV, because we're bringing it into our bedrooms and into at the dinner table, or like whenever it's so accessible all the time for us. And so, and it's breaking apart families as well, and friendships, I guess, in the States especially, where people are no longer able to really talk because of the way that this political, very hard way of talking is coming into the personal, or that's one way to look at it maybe. And so I'm wondering, how do we sort of deal with that or respond to that? Or do you have any, how does that relate to
Well,
what we've been talking about?
I have the ultimate truth about how to address this.
Lucky
thing, huh?
Just your perspective would be
that's enough.
Yeah.
Phew. No, but I think that I think you describe it extremely well. The sort of violent quality in this, that it's a kind of violence that we use on ourselves and others. But I do think that, I mean, there are many layers to this, and I think that one aspect of this is that we sort of need to practice conversations. So if I start there, because having a conversation, just a conversation like you and I are having now, that is something you need to practice. You need to practice how to listen, and how to listen to someone talking without starting to think about, oops, what's the right way to answer this thing that you're saying now, and just not do that and be with the person who's talking. Just that is a lot of practice. And how to say what you feel or what you think, how to say what you're not sure about. Lots of practice. And I think that this is something that there are few spaces and places where we do actually practice this. And I also noticed that with students, that they're grown up, and they can still be like, whoops, I haven't done this. It depends what kind of background you have, but it's certainly not something that you're offered in school. Why? It's the most fundamental thing in any democratic system. How come we are not offered that? We just put in, this is a group exercise, and
the terrible group exercise
that everybody hates.
Yeah.
I think that it is deeply unfair that we don't practice this in schools, because then it will always give the kids who are used to this an upper hand, and that's just wrong. So I think that's one thing, and then we keep on not practicing it at work. So these group exercises that we hate and that we go into without this knowledge. So it's always like this girl with a ponytail at the end who says like, no, now everybody, we gotta do like this. And you're like, oh yeah, okay, let's just do like
that was totally me.
Yeah, that was you. Yeah. And I was like the one who was like, yeah, okay. And then I was like, I'm not going to talk. And then you just keep playing this out over and over again. And then you do the same thing at work, but you're still not having a conversation. And then you're at the dinner table and you're having a divorce over the election because you hate Trump. And I think, so I mean, this kind of, how come we're not practicing this all the time? That's one perspective. Yeah. Because I do think that it is more valuable than violent that we have this stream in our phones. I think it's a great thing that my son who's in there, he's an expert on American politics, and he teaches me. Yeah. He's like, no, but that was this guy, and he's like the influencer of that, and blah blah blah, and that's fantastic, and that's because of his phone. So I do think that it's not. I don't believe in sort of the sort of purity. Let's go back to the purity of when we were looking at the television, because that was also mind control, but from a different, way. So, and there were just a lot of white men speaking, and we thought that was the normal thing. So I think that it is useful, it's accessible, it promotes diversity, but I think that we need to have the practice of conversation to be able to, sorry for overusing this word, but sort of harboring that, to know what to do with it and how to deal with it. So why don't we have libraries with why don't we have more libraries? Why don't we have more public libraries? Why aren't they everywhere? Why don't we have conversation practices in the libraries? Why don't we have people who go around like selling hot dogs and conversations. I mean, come on. This is, this is what we should be doing all the time. Because that's also when you sort of figure things out, right? For yourself. You talk to a friend, and if you have a conversation, it's not necessarily that you have a conflict. You can be of very different minds, but you still go like, yeah, my God. Now I know, I kind of sensed it, but now I really know what I think. Or whoops, now I changed my mind. And it's, you sort of, that's the only place you can do that.
Yeah. What would you say to people who want to have better conversations with their colleagues and their families and their friends?
It's interesting because I have a concept that I'm working with in my own company, Boiler, which is called foodology. And it's basically a concept where you sort of bring together people, and you have a meal or a breakfast, which will be the next time foodology happens. And you have this sort of small, it can be a small bag or something, and you have these things where you smell something, or you taste something, or you touch something, and then there are questions, and you reflect around these questions together. So it's actually super simple. But the interesting thing is that when we did our first foodology, which was in a time when people could touch the same things without being scared, and now everybody gets their own personal bag. But at that time, I had these emails afterwards where people were saying things like, how do I sort of get my hands on these tools? And you're like, I hate to say it, but you don't have to hire me. You can just, just do it. Put the question on the table. And I think that my strongest recommendation is to sort of find a way of don't be scared to ask about anything. And practice being really interested. Because that is also a practice. And because sometimes you're just too like, I'm too stressed out, or I'm scared, or I'm nervous, so what did you say? So it's also, how do I make it possible for myself? I'm here now, I'm at the table, and I'm really interested in what you're saying. So that's one. And I really practice to ask people, my kids and people I work with, and all kinds of questions. Like, what are you scared of? What do you think about politics? What kind of relationships will we have in 20 years? Is the nuclear family dead? Will we have 50 partners? What do you think? And people are always happy to get the question. Always. Even your teenage kids are happy to get the questions, because we want to think, we want to talk, we want to be heard. I never ever had someone say, "Oh, that's a much too difficult question for me." No one.
Interesting.
Because there are no such questions. There are no questions that are too difficult for us. There might be questions that are like, "Oh, I never thought about that. That's, I don't know. Well, let me see. I don't know if I know what I think about this." And then we can talk about it. But it doesn't exist. Yeah. So I think you can throw questions that you can be playful with that, and you can sort of you can be honest in your exploration. You can say that I'm practicing conversations. Can I practice with you?
Yeah.
My God, what a dream date that would be. So I think that is being able to be present enough to be really interested in the answers, and being honest with what you come in to do, and then just play with it. And you can even ask people, what kind of questions should I ask you? That's also a great question.
Yeah. Do you want to hear my number one fear for conversations?
Please. Yes.
I think for some reason, I really hate super awkward situations. I like, even in films, you know, some people think it's hilarious when there's like really awkward.
And you just get sweaty.
Yeah,
and
it's like, oh my God, this is so awkward. So
you're scared that if you ask sort of the wrong question, that it will be awkward?
Yeah, maybe. Or that I think that because it's not that I care about myself maybe so much. It's maybe making the other person
feel uncomfortable
and awkward and without meaning to. I think.
Sure. But I don't think that can ever happen to you, even if you really, really try.
Okay, maybe
I don't think that you have that bone in your body anywhere.
We'll see.
So, I mean, I can, and you can also ask people, are there questions that will make you feel uncomfortable?
That's true.
Then they'll tell me where not to go.
Yeah.
And I'll just play freely in the rest of the apartment, but I won't go in there.
Is there anything that that you feel that we should have talked about that we didn't? Is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I think you opened a beautiful, beautiful road for us to walk on. You really made me think and be present. So thank you for
Likewise.
that.
Thank you.
I don't think that. Yeah, if there's something that I mean, we haven't talked so much about play.
No, that's true.
Or actually, we haven't talked about play at all. So I just want to maybe say one thing about,
please do,
because that also ties into conversations. That I think that there is also a very strong connection between sort of a playful mindset, practicing a playful mindset, because play works the same. That anything is potentially a space for playing, or a tool for playing, or a tool for storytelling, and I think that you can also practice. I tend to call it like practicing looking at things like a kid. So you're like looking at a glass, but you're also sort of thinking about maybe it's not a glass, maybe it's like binoculars looking into a parallel universe, and you sort of have this like, but maybe it's something completely different. Maybe it's an entrance to another narrative, and I think that's also a quality that you can bring to the conversation, that it's not given. It's not given what I say or what you say or where we are going. It can be this, but it can also be that. And I think to see conversation as a way of playing together, I think is useful for me, because it also helps me not taking myself so goddamn serious, which is very useful in any conversation. It doesn't matter if you are interviewing or being interviewed, that it's not super important at the end of the day what I said. So and I think that is really helpful. It's just us playing with notions of reality. That's it.
As always, there are links and further reading in the show notes. And there's an extended version of this conversation on our Patreon page. I hope this leads to some interesting conversations for you, as it has for me. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back in a few weeks.